Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Sinner, Brotherhood, out July 15th on Atomic Fire Records. The album has 12 tracks, 57 minutes in length, and this is the band's 20th full-length studio album. They are a German heavy metal band. Now this album, from a structural perspective, had me a little bit confused. The album has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has the end. But the middle of the record really loses itself within itself. I just feel like they overstretched this album. So the record starts off really strong with Bulletproof, We Came to Rock, two of the heaviest, more powerful tracks on the album, and that's how you want to start. You want the listener to start right off the bat, becoming engaged with the record, enjoying the album, and connecting with the experience that's going to come forward. The ending of the record is also perfect. You have 40 Days, 40 Nights, a ballad, and then you have the Killers cover of When You Were Young. Two songs that, while different, they break the mold in terms of what the rest of the album is all about. And there's really no other place for them but at the end. So in terms of defining the best way to start and the best way to finish, they definitely achieve that. It's the middle portion of the record that I have a problem with. In my opinion, the album is a little bit too long. And when you have an album that's too long, that middle portion of the record doesn't have enough ripple effects, it doesn't have enough ebbs and flows to allow some songs to jump out and have a little bit of a moment to shine. The album starts to become a little bit flat. It starts to become a little bit of too much of itself within itself. And then it's really hard to tell the forest from the trees. So that middle portion of the album almost hurts how impactful the start is and how different the ending becomes. Because the impression that you get and what you walk away from this record with is feeling that the overall album is very balanced, very uniform, and it doesn't really change too much from one point to the next, when it's not necessarily true. So they could have defined the album better. They could have created, or they could have brought some of the elements that we saw in the beginning, some of the elements that we saw at the end, bridge them into the middle of the record so you have more pit stops along the way. The album wouldn't be as fluid, but it would be more engaging, and that would add playability all around. As far as the sound quality is concerned, the production on this album definitely stands out. I like the sound, I like the essence, I like the experience, and I like the fact that they really brought out the best elements of each and every single song. Regardless if you like the tracks or not, you can't deny that each and every single song on this record has a great soundscape behind it, really elevating all the elements. You can feel the vocal presence, you can feel the drums, guitars, bass. Everything is very well defined within its parameters. This album has a little bit of an old school taste to it, but very modern in terms of how it's all put together and how they brought all of these elements to the table. And some of the elements that they brought to the table that allow them to be the backbone of the entire record are the drums and guitars. The drums on this record could have been a better defined. I think that's the best way to explain how I would have liked to see the drums. I wanted them to have always an important role, regardless if you're in the forefront, in the heavier tracks, in the more bombastic tracks, or a little bit more in the background in the softer songs. Doesn't mean that you cannot create shapes with your drum sound. It doesn't mean that you can't create consistency. And the drums lost a little bit of consistency depending on what the demands were, from being a little bit more a driver of the energy or being a little bit more of a passenger on that ride. So I wanted to see a little bit more consistency, a little bit better shape, a little bit better design, and give the drums the role that they need to have for this record to have more a sense of drive, more a sense of purpose across each and every single song. Now on the other hand, the guitars really flourish throughout the entire album. I don't think you can pick a song on this record where the guitars don't have a positive impact. I like their sound, I like their drive, I like their melody, heavier when they need to be, more driven when they need to be, adding some acoustic elements here and there to really spice things up and to expand the footprint of the songs and expand the footprint of the guitar sound. So everything surrounding the guitars on this record was something that I really enjoyed, and I enjoyed throughout, and there's really nothing to say negative about it, because the guitar sound, the guitar performance, the overall execution really matched the overall experience that the album is trying to portray. Now as far as vocals are concerned, I mean, you have some serious guest vocalists on this record. You have Ralph Shapers from Primal Fear, Tom England from Evergrey, you have Dave Ingram from Benediction, and Ronnie Romero from Rainbow. I mean, this is a who's who of great vocalists all of them with different styles, with different approaches, with different energies. So a lot that you can bring into the table in order for the vocal approach from start to finish to be as diverse, to be as robust as it can possibly be. I like this style. Nothing new to Sinner, nothing new to Sinner fans, nothing new to Sinner Records, but they continue to move the needle, always bringing great guest vocalists in order to add a little bit of extra spice to the record, to the experience, to the performance, and to the songs themselves. Really bringing the right guys to the right songs, also important, something that they do really well. Now, overall, this is an album that has great elements. It's a good sounding heavy metal album, but it doesn't move the needle one way or another. It's not memorable. I've heard other albums like this before, and I'm going to hear other albums like this going forward. So it's a record that feels a little bit like it's just floating. It doesn't have a sense of purpose. It doesn't separate itself from those around it. And because of that, you lose it within the forest of other great heavy metal albums, or even good heavy metal albums that are being released right now. It needed something else in that middle portion of the album that really jumps out and becomes almost a defining factor of what the overall record is going to be all about. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Came to Rock. One of the most heavier pounding tracks that this album has to offer. It's the number 2 on the list right after Bulletproof, and it's a song that really says it all in the title. It came to rock, and it does rock out. It's very driven, very punchy. The chorus is very hooky, and it has a little bit of an explosive, infectious nature to it. Having some backing vocals in that chorus really help making it more hooky, more catchy, more dynamic. The drums are heavy. They define a lot of the heaviness on this song, and allowing the guitars to be chunky, to be driven, and to push the song forward. Classic heavy metal track through and through. Next you have Reach Out, a powerful guitar sound, and that becomes the trademark of this song. The guitar sound, the guitar playing, how they approached it from beginning to end, that is what this song really revolves around. It feeds off of it. All the energy really comes from it. I like that the verses have a sense of movement, but they're not overpowering. And then once you get into the chorus is more melodic, and that changes ever so slightly the perception that you have of the track. So it's a very smooth way of creating some peaks and valleys, creating some ebbs and flows from beginning all the way to the end. Last but not least, Gravity. The acoustic opening is interesting. I wanted to see where they were going to go with it, because it's very somber, and the song afterwards doesn't really have that somber nature. The only time that it gets close is when the pianos come in. When the pianos come in, they kind of change roles with what the acoustic guitars did at the beginning, because they both have a very similar approach, a very similar experience, and they both give a very similar atmosphere to the listener. But in between that, the song has a lot of power, it has a lot of movement. I like how dynamic it is vocally, and that helps move the needle, that helps move the song. It gives it the necessary jolts. It doesn't change the DNA of the track, but it definitely changes how you perceive it. So really interesting song all around. This is it, Sinner with Brotherhood, out July 15th on Atomic Fire Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.